I should have been happy that day. Balloons filled the dining room, streamers hung from the ceiling, and everyone around the table was clapping as Elizabeth lit the candles on my cake. 16 candles flickered in front of me, casting a warm glow over my face, but all I felt was cold. "Make a wish, Kate," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness, her smile perfectly staged for the crowd of relatives who had gathered. I closed my eyes, the sound of their laughter echoing in my ears, and wished for something I knew I couldn't have. I wished my mother was still alive. When I opened my eyes, Elizabeth was still smiling, her hand resting gently on my father's shoulder. She looked like the perfect stepmother, the one who had stepped up after tragedy, the one who always reminded me how lucky I was. And when the presents started piling up in front of me, she clapped the loudest. "Go on, open them," she urged, her eyes glittering. I tore through the wrapping paper, revealing expensive gifts, jewelry, clothes, gadgets. Things that made everyone else gasp with envy. Elizabeth beamed as if she had given me the world. "Only the best for my Kate," she said proudly, loud enough for everyone to hear. But all I could think about was the envelope I'd found a week earlier, hidden in her desk drawer. Receipts. Receipts with my mother's name at the top. Transactions showing money being pulled from the inheritance account my mother had left for me. Thousands of dollars spent at the same stores where these so-called gifts came from. She wasn't spoiling me. She was robbing me. She was buying my own gifts with my money. I forced a smile as I held up the necklace she'd given me, the guests clapping and cheering. Inside, my stomach twisted. Every cheer felt like mockery, every gift like theft. She looked at me with those sharp blue eyes, daring me to say something, knowing I wouldn't. Not yet. Because what Elizabeth didn't know was that I had taken copies of those receipts. And I was done being quiet. The rest of the night, I played along. I laughed when I was supposed to. I thanked her for every gift. I hugged my father while he looked at Elizabeth with pride, thinking she was the kind of woman who held families together. But inside, I was already planning. Later, when the guests had gone and the house was quiet, I sat in my room staring at the folder under my bed. The one filled with every receipt I'd found, every bank statement I'd copied, every scrap of evidence that proved Elizabeth was bleeding my inheritance dry and pretending to be generous. For years, she had reminded me I was lucky. Lucky she stayed after my mother died. Lucky she took care of me. Lucky she provided. But now I knew the truth. I wasn't lucky. I was robbed. And when I finally revealed it, she wouldn't just lose her mask. She'd lose everything. The days after my birthday felt surreal. Elizabeth strutted around the house like she had just won some contest, telling neighbors how grateful I was for the gifts, how she loved me as if I were her own. My father swallowed every word, smiling proudly when she told the stories. "Kate's so appreciative," she'd say while watering the flowers on the porch, her voice carrying to Mrs. Keller next door. "I just want her to have everything her heart desires." And I'd stand there, biting my tongue, knowing the truth. Every day after school, I went to my room and added more to the folder. The receipts told a story clearer than any words could. Luxury stores, jewelry shops, clothing boutiques, all charged to my inheritance account. The account that was supposed to pay for my future, my education, my independence. Elizabeth wasn't building me up. She was bleeding me dry. I started watching her more closely. The way she locked her desk drawer every night. The way she flinched whenever the mail arrived, rushing to grab the bank statements before anyone else could see. The way she slipped into my father's study late at night, whispering on the phone, her voice sharp and low. Once, I crept closer, pressing my ear against the door. "No, he doesn't know," she hissed into the receiver. "Of course he doesn't. He trusts me. Stop worrying, it's under control." I froze, my heart racing. Who was she talking to? And what exactly was under control? The more I listened, the more I realized her lies went deeper than I thought. It wasn't just about the inheritance. She was hiding things from my father, from everyone. And if I played this right, I could expose it all. One evening, I decided to test her. "Elizabeth," I said casually at dinner, pushing food around my plate, "I was thinking of using some of Mom's inheritance to start saving for college. Maybe open a separate account." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Just for a second. but I saw it. Then she smiled. Oh, honey, there's no rush for that. You're still young. Let us worry about your future. I just want to be responsible, I said, watching her carefully. Maybe I'll go to the bank this weekend. My father smiled proudly. That's my girl. Always thinking ahead. But Elizabeth's eyes were sharp as glass. I'll go with you, she said quickly. We'll make sure everything's handled properly. And that confirmed it. She couldn't risk me seeing the account. Not when it would show me how much she had taken. That night, I added another note to my folder. She's afraid of the bank. Keep pushing. A week later, I finally told Alina, my best friend, everything. We sat in her bedroom surrounded by textbooks, my folder spread across the floor between us. Kate, this is insane, she whispered, flipping through the receipts. She's using your inheritance like it's her personal piggy bank. I know, I said bitterly. And my dad has no idea. He thinks she's being generous. You have to tell him. I shook my head. Not yet. If I go to him now, she'll twist it. She always does. I need more. Something he can't deny. Alina nodded slowly, her eyes fierce. Then you need to catch her in the act. Her words echoed in my head for days. Catch her in the act. That was the only way. So, I started watching closer. When Elizabeth went shopping, I followed at a distance. When she took calls in the study, I recorded the muffled voices through the door. When she left her desk unattended, I snapped photos of the documents inside before she returned. Piece by piece, her empire of lies was falling apart in my hands. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I came home from school early, slipping quietly into the house. Elizabeth was in the living room, her back to me, rifling through a stack of papers. I crept closer, my heart pounding. And then I saw it. A receipt for a diamond bracelet. Not the one she'd given me. A different one. One she had bought for herself, with my mother's money. I gasped before I could stop myself. Her head snapped up. Kate, she said coldly, her eyes narrowing. What are you doing home so early? I swallowed hard. Just got out of class early. She slid the receipt into her purse, her smile returning like a mask. Well, you should have told me. I could have picked you up. You know I only want what's best for you. But her voice was tight, her eyes sharp, like a predator watching prey. I forced a smile and hurried upstairs, my hands shaking. That night, I added the photograph of that receipt to my folder. And for the first time, I didn't feel scared. I felt ready. Because Elizabeth thought she was untouchable. But I was going to prove her wrong. And when I did, I wasn't just going to take back what was mine. I was going to take back my life. The next morning, Elizabeth acted like nothing had happened. She floated around the kitchen in her silk robe, humming to herself as she poured coffee into my father's mug, kissing his cheek as if she were the perfect wife. But I noticed her eyes flick toward me every few seconds, sharp and watchful. She knew I had seen that receipt. Sleep well, Kate? She asked, her tone too sweet. I forced a smile. Yeah, great. But I could feel the tension tightening around us like a rope. She was testing me, watching for cracks. And I knew if I slipped even once, she'd twist it all against me. That night, I double-checked the folder under my bed, counting every photo, every receipt. I couldn't risk her finding it. I needed a safer place. So the next day, I stuffed the documents into my backpack and biked to Alina's house after school. Her eyes widened when she saw how much more I had collected. Kate, this is huge. This isn't just some receipts. This is a case. I know, I whispered, spreading the papers across her desk. I just need the right moment to use it. Something public. Something she can't talk her way out of. Alina chewed her lip, thinking, what about your dad's birthday? It's coming up, right? Big party, lots of people there. If you show everyone then. My chest tightened. The idea was terrifying, but it made sense. Elizabeth thrived in public, where she could act sweet and generous. What better place to shatter her mask than in front of everyone she wanted to impress? I'll do it, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Over the next week, I started gathering more evidence. Elizabeth had become cautious, locking her purse, double-checking her desk drawers. But her arrogance blinded her. She still slipped up. She still left traces. One afternoon, I followed her into town. She told my father she was meeting a friend for coffee, but instead, I watched her walk into a jewelry store. I ducked behind a display across the street, my phone recording as she emerged 20 minutes later with a small velvet bag in her hand. Later, I searched the house and found the bag tucked into her dresser. Inside was a gold bracelet, delicate and expensive, the price tag still attached. Bought with my inheritance, no doubt. I took photos and slipped the bag back exactly where I'd found it. The more I collected, the stronger my case became, and the more dangerous it felt. One night, as I was slipping back into my room, I nearly collided with her in the hallway. "Kate," she said smoothly, though her eyes were sharp. "You've been out late this week. Studying with Alina?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Big test coming up." She tilted her head, her smile too wide. "You know, I admire how hard you work. You're just like your mother. She always wanted the best for you." The mention of my mother made my stomach churn. She used her name like a weapon, twisting the memory into something that suited her. "Thanks," I muttered, slipping into my room before she could say more. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my head. She knew I was hiding something, and if she figured it out before I was ready, everything would collapse. I had to stay ahead of her. A few days later, Alina and I went over the plan in her room. "You can't just hand the papers to your dad," she said. "She'll make excuses. You need to make it impossible for her to talk her way out." I nodded. "It has to be public. Everyone needs to see it at once." "Exactly," Alina agreed. "Your dad's birthday is perfect. She'll probably give him some fancy gift and make herself look amazing. That's when you hit her with the truth." The thought of it made my heart race. Confronting her in front of my father, my relatives, everyone, it would be like setting off a bomb. But it was the only way. So I kept collecting, watching, waiting. Then, 2 days before my father's birthday, Elizabeth cornered me. I was in the kitchen pouring juice when she slipped in behind me, her perfume sharp, her voice low. "Kate," she murmured, "you've been acting strange lately. Is there something you want to tell me?" I froze, gripping the glass too tightly.
No.
"Why?" She leaned closer, her smile tight. "Because I know when someone is hiding something. And I'd hate to think you were keeping secrets from me. After everything I've done for you." Her words dripped with threat, though her tone stayed sweet.
She was warning me.
I forced a shaky laugh. "I'm fine, Elizabeth." "Really?" She studied me for a long moment, then patted my arm.
Good.
"Because secrets have a way of destroying families. And I'd hate for that to happen to us." Her eyes lingered on mine, cold and sharp, before she turned and walked away. I stood there trembling, the glass shaking in my hands. She knew, maybe not everything, but enough to be dangerous. And that meant I had to act fast. The day of my father's birthday arrived like a storm. The house was packed with relatives and friends, the dining room glowing with candles, laughter echoing through the halls. Elizabeth glided among the guests, perfect in her crimson dress, her smile dazzling. Everyone praised her. Everyone admired her. And I waited. When it was time for gifts, she rose gracefully, holding a wrapped box. "For the most wonderful husband," she said, her voice soft, filled with affection. "No one deserves this more than you." My father opened the box and gasped. Inside was a gleaming gold watch, expensive and elegant. "Elizabeth," he whispered, stunned. "This is incredible." The crowd clapped, admiring her generosity. She blushed modestly, soaking in the admiration. "Only the best for him," she said, glancing at me with a victorious smirk. And that's when I stood. My legs shook as I reached for my purse, pulling out the thick folder. The room fell quiet as I stepped forward, my voice trembling but strong. "That's funny," I said, holding up a receipt. "Because I have proof that watch wasn't bought with your money, Elizabeth. It was bought with mine." Gasps filled the room. My father froze, staring at me in confusion. Elizabeth's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. "Kate," she said sweetly, dangerously. "What are you talking about?" I held up the papers, my voice rising. "Every gift you've given me, every expensive thing you've bought for this family, it's all for my inheritance." The money Mom left me. And I can prove it. I dropped the receipts onto the table, the photos, the statements, all spilling out for everyone to see. The room erupted, shocked voices clashing, relatives leaning forward to grab the papers. My father's face went pale as he picked up one receipt after another, his hands shaking. "Elizabeth," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Tell me this isn't true." She opened her mouth, but no words came, and in that silence, her mask began to crack. The air in the room was electric, buzzing with shock and disbelief. Papers scattered across the table, receipts with Elizabeth's signature, bank statements stamped with my mother's name, photographs of the jewelry and clothes she'd pretended to gift me. All of it lay bare under the chandelier light, undeniable and raw. My father sat frozen, his hands trembling as he flipped through the evidence. His face was pale, his eyes wide, his lips moving but no sound coming out. He looked broken, like the ground beneath him had given way. Elizabeth finally moved. She straightened, her crimson dress glowing under the lights, her eyes sharp as blades. And then she laughed. A short, brittle laugh that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, Kate," she said, her voice dripping with false pity. "This is what this is all about. A few receipts? A silly misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" I shot back, my voice trembling but firm. "You stole from me. You've been stealing from me for years." The crowd murmured louder, guests shifting uneasily, their eyes darting between us. Elizabeth's smile widened, though her eyes flashed with anger. "I didn't steal anything," she said smoothly. "I managed the money. Your mother left it for you, yes, but you're a child, Kate. You wouldn't know how to use it. I used it to give you a better life, to give this family stability." I held up another receipt, my voice rising. "A diamond bracelet for yourself? A gold watch for Dad? That's not stability. That's greed." Gasps rippled through the room. My father's head jerked up, his eyes darting between us. "Elizabeth," he whispered, his voice raw. "Tell me she's wrong." Elizabeth turned to him quickly, her expression softening, her tone desperate. "Daniel, listen to me. You know how teenagers are. She's confused. She doesn't understand how finances work. I was protecting her, protecting all of us." Her words were honeyed, sweet and convincing. For a moment, I saw my father's resolve waver. His love for her clouded his judgment, the way it always did. Panic surged in my chest. If I didn't act fast, she would twist it again. So I pulled out the photograph, the one I had kept hidden for this exact moment. It was a picture of the bracelet I had found in her dresser, the one bought with my inheritance, the one she had never given me because it wasn't for me. "This," I said, holding the photo high, "was bought with my money." "And you didn't buy it for me, did you, Elizabeth?" Her eyes widened, her mask slipping. For the first time, real fear flickered in her expression. "You bought it for yourself." The room erupted. Relatives shouted, voices clashing in disbelief and anger. My father grabbed the photo from my hand, his face crumpling as he studied it. "Elizabeth, tell me this isn't true." But she didn't answer. Her silence screamed louder than any words. Finally, she snapped. "You ungrateful brat," she shouted, her voice shrill, echoing off the walls. "I gave you everything. I kept this family together. And this is how you repay me? By embarrassing me in front of everyone." Her mask was gone now, ripped away. The sweet, perfect stepmother vanished, replaced by the woman I had always known, the cruel, manipulative thief who had stolen my life piece by piece. I stood tall, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "You didn't give me anything.
You stole from me.
You used my mother's money to make yourself look good. But not anymore. Everyone knows the truth now." Elizabeth's face twisted with rage, her eyes burning into me. For a second, I thought she might lunge at me, but instead she turned back to my father, her voice breaking. "Daniel, please," she begged. "You can't believe her. She's jealous, she's angry. Don't let her tear us apart." But my father didn't move. He sat there, staring at the pile of evidence, his shoulders slumped, his face hollow. "Elizabeth," he whispered, his voice cracking. "How could you?" She froze, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. Then her eyes flicked back to me, filled with venom. "This isn't over," she hissed under her breath, so only I could hear. But I smiled. For the first time in years, I smiled. "Yes, it is." The party was chaos after that. Guests muttered angrily, some storming out, others whispering in corners. The bride from last year's wedding, the one Elizabeth had stolen the spotlight from, looked at her with open disgust. Even her closest allies in the family refused to meet her eyes. Elizabeth tried to regain control, smoothing her dress, forcing a smile, but the mask was shattered beyond repair. No one was fooled anymore. Finally, my father stood, his voice hoarse but firm.
Enough.
"Everyone, thank you for coming. But this evening is over." The guests shuffled out reluctantly, casting glances at me, at Elizabeth, at the wreckage of what had been a celebration. When the house was quiet, my father turned to me, his eyes filled with pain. "Kate, why didn't you tell me sooner?" Tears burned my eyes, but I forced my voice steady. "Because you wouldn't have believed me. You never do. She always twisted everything, and you always took her side." His face crumpled, guilt washing over him. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. Elizabeth stood in the corner, her arms crossed, her face pale. For once, she had nothing to say. And I knew then that this was only the beginning. Because exposing her was one thing, but making her pay? That was something else entirely. And I was ready. The house felt like it was holding its breath. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses from my father's birthday party had been replaced by silence, so heavy it pressed against my chest. The only sounds were the faint hum of the refrigerator and Elizabeth's uneven breathing in the corner. She looked smaller now, stripped of her mask, her crimson dress crumpled, her hair falling loose around her face. But her eyes still burned with anger. She wasn't defeated yet, not completely. "You think you've won, don't you?" She spat suddenly, her voice sharp in the quiet. "You think waving a few pieces of paper makes you the hero? You have no idea how the world works, Kate. Without me, your father would be lost. This family would fall apart." I stared at her, my hands trembling but my voice firm. "The only person tearing this family apart is you." My father flinched, as though the words cut him. He sank into his chair, staring at Elizabeth like he didn't recognize her anymore. "Is it true?" he asked again, his voice low, almost pleading. "All of it? The money, the gifts, the lies?" Elizabeth's lips trembled, and for a moment I saw something flicker in her expression, fear. But then she straightened, forcing a brittle smile. "Daniel, I did it for us."
For you.
For Kate. That money wasn't safe just sitting there. I invested it into the family. I used it to give her a life she wouldn't have had otherwise. By stealing from her? His voice rose, filled with rage I had never heard from him before. By emptying the account her mother left for her future? Do you even hear yourself? Elizabeth's eyes flashed, and her mask cracked again. "I am her future," she shouted, pointing at me. "Everything she has, everything she is, it's because of me. She would be nothing without me." The words stung, sharp as knives, but instead of crumbling under them like I always had, I stood taller. "No," I said quietly. "I'd be more without you." Her face twisted with rage, but before she could respond, my father slammed his fist against the table. "Enough. I don't want to hear another word." The silence that followed was final. Heavy. Elizabeth's mouth opened and closed, her chest heaving. For the first time, she looked powerless. The next morning, everything unraveled. Word of the party had spread through the family like wildfire. Relatives called one after another, demanding explanations, voicing their disgust. My father barely left his office, the sound of his strained voice carrying through the halls as he tried to piece together the damage. Elizabeth, meanwhile, prowled the house like a trapped animal. She barely spoke to me, her eyes cold daggers whenever we crossed paths. But I knew she was plotting. She always plotted. That night, I woke to the sound of drawers opening in her bedroom. Quiet, careful. I crept to her door, peeking through the crack. She was packing. Stacks of jewelry, envelopes of cash, documents stuffed into a suitcase. My inheritance wasn't enough for her. She was trying to take more before she slipped away. My heart pounded as I hurried back to my room, grabbing my phone. I snapped photos through the crack in the door, catching her red-handed. The next morning, I showed them to my father. He stared at the screen for a long time, his face pale. Then he stood, his hands trembling. "That's it," he said, his voice breaking. "She's done." By the end of the week, Elizabeth was gone. My father confronted her with the photos, with the receipts, with everything. For hours, I heard shouting through the walls. Her voice shrill and desperate, his firm and furious. And then the slam of the front door. She left with nothing. No suitcase, no jewelry, no cash. My father made sure of it. The silence that followed felt strange at first. The house that had always echoed with her false sweetness was empty. For days, I half expected her to sweep back in, her perfume announcing her presence, her voice dripping with sugar and venom. But she never did. And slowly, the silence became peace. Weeks passed, and the house felt lighter. My father started spending more time with me, asking questions about school, helping me with college plans. It was awkward at first, like we were strangers learning each other all over again, but it was real. For the first time in years, it was real. One evening, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. He cleared his throat, his voice thick. "Kate, I failed you. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "You see it now. That's what matters." He nodded, his eyes shining. "I'll make it right. I promise." For the first time, I believed him. As for Elizabeth, rumors swirled. Some said she tried to stay with a relative, but was turned away. Others whispered she was living in a small apartment on the edge of town. The glamorous image she had built shattered. Wherever she was, it didn't matter. She no longer had control over me, over us. One afternoon, I went back to the attic. The same attic where I had once found the first receipts, the first clues of her lies. Dust coated the boxes, the light slanting through the window just as it had that day. I pulled out the folder, now thick with evidence, and stared at it for a long time. Every paper, every photo, every record of her betrayal was here. Proof of what she had done. Proof of what I had survived. And then, slowly, I fed the pages into the fireplace. One by one, they curled into ash. Because I didn't need the evidence anymore. The truth was out. The lies were gone. And I was free. That night, I lay in bed, my window open to the cool night air. For years, I had felt trapped, suffocated by Elizabeth's shadow. But now, for the first time, I felt something else. Hope. I thought of my mother, of the inheritance she had left me. Not just the money, but the belief that I had a future worth protecting. Elizabeth had tried to steal that from me. She had tried to make me feel small, powerless. But in the end, she lost everything. And I found myself. And as I drifted off to sleep, I realized something I had never thought I'd feel again. I wasn't afraid anymore.